Hello, welcome to Agile World. Sabrina, you're looking fabulous. That background really goes with your eyes. What are you thinking I'm being cynical or sarcastic in some way?
No. It's an improvement on the background. As you can see, obviously you've probably seen from our other host, with the first time we're using this background, and this background is far better than the previous background you chose, Karl. So thank you. That's probably because you didn't choose the color, I did. So I'm taking credit on this. It gives me a good complexion. It looks good on everybody. So thank you very much.
Yes, I acknowledge you, boss. And we have another fabulous person with us today, Maria Matatelli. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you. Great to be here.
Tell us about yourself. Where are you based? What are you doing? And why did you submit yourself to Agile World?
Oh, I mean, how much time you got? All right. So my background is actually, I grew up in a little bit south of Chicago. I live downtown Chicago. Now I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida. Love the winters here. And I started off, my background was in IT project management. And so when I first started working, I was at Caterpillar Incorporated, worked there for 5 years. Did some Lean Six Sigma. They have the big yellow tractors, off-highway trucks. So it was always about how could we streamline processes, reduce defects, and really just have better quality. And then after that, I worked at State Farm Insurance corporate headquarters, systems technology department for 5 years. And that's where I got into traditional project management and discovered Agile. So managing projects, $5 million budgets. I had the enterprise server release, Windows and Unix server upgrades. And I got to tell you, no matter how many times you plan these projects 2 years in advance, something always changes. And so when I discovered Agile, it made so much more sense. Instead of planning out a 2-year project and then having to replan it halfway through, we would plan the shorter increment, do the work, plan the next increment, do the work. And so I quickly fell in love with this approach because it just makes so much sense. So we were using Scrum, was a Scrum Master for 3 years. Since then, I've been in the product owner role as well. Moved downtown Chicago, started consulting and doing Agile coaching there, got into training. Actually, you'll appreciate this. Started traveling like a gypsy, got rid of my place in Chicago, started selling my things, got a storage unit. I literally traveled the world for 5 years with no home. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that to everybody. It's a little radical. However, it did allow me to really expand my global network. And we had launched the Agile Marketing Academy. I co-founded that with Nick Cementa, who had been working with in Chicago, co-founded the Personal Agility Institute. And so going around the world and leading training in Shanghai, Singapore, Thailand, India, throughout the US, I've been able to really help companies all over, from Fortune 100 companies down to mid-sized companies and even startups, on how to apply Agile in a variety of different ways to get amazing results.
Oh, we are not worthy. I'm sorry, we are not worthy. That is amazing. Whoa, what an intro.
Thank you, Sabrina. Appreciate it.
Well, living in a suitcase is not much fun. I did that for 10 years, traveling everywhere that you can imagine. I even worked in the US. You know, when people say to you, I love flying, try doing 3 flights a day to do presentations and then do a presentation when you get off the plane in the evening. It's totally exhausting, but it was a useful experience, I would say. I think that's the way to describe it.
You're referring to the glamorous side of travel.
I mean, yeah. I struggled. I mean, I did it up and down the UK for several years, and I'm not going to lie, and I've openly told us people, when it got to lockdown, it was nice to actually be at home, the house that I bought with my husband, and actually be here long enough to go, oh, there's a crack there. I just literally, I was so like, there's a bit of a crack in the wall.
Suddenly his list extends.
Yeah, but it was nice to be at home. My poor husband, you know, he knew with the job I was doing that he'd only get me like kind of semi-part-time physically and part-time over Zoom. But I did enjoy the fact I got a chance to be home with the family, but I do miss the travel as well. I do. I used to love, even though it wasn't as glamorous as traveling in different countries, I did used to love going to the airport and traveling like from the northeast to the south in my fancy shoes, toddling along with my little bag and my roller bag. I just felt so like fabulous.
Actually, I'll rephrase, Karl. That's the glamorous side of travel. What we just
is it? Okay. I've never actually tried to do that one. I don't think I'd be able to manage that look.
Oh, you wait till you travel with me, Karl. You'll be carrying my bags.
Honestly, no. I mean, I really strongly believe in subcontracting. So
Okay.
if you don't serve into that community of porters, then you're actually just creating disservice to other travelers, because there won't be enough porters for everyone.
So thoughtful. So thoughtful.
And a bit lazy, that'll do.
So what are you currently working on now? So you've done all this fabulous traveling, and so what is your current thing at the moment that you're doing?
Yeah, thanks, Sabrina. So over the last year, a lot of people have been working virtually. So we've converted all of our training to live instructor-led online, super engaging, very interactive. And so my main company, Formula Inc., we do a lot of certified Scrum Master, certified Scrum Product Owner training. And my background as a certified Scrum trainer, that's what we get a lot of requests for. We also lead Agile marketing courses through the Agile Marketing Academy, and then a lot of personal agility as well. So working with people to apply Agile to do more of what matters in their life. And it's also the foundation as a leadership framework for organizations to create better alignment. And so in addition to that, I launched a virtual summit series this year called the Agile Heroes Summit. We host it once a month, and we have an online community just interviewing Agilists from around the world to help them on their journey not step in the same holes other people step in, and get some tips and things to be able to just really be able to be more effective in how they apply Agile across a variety of different applications.
Love it.
Cool.
So within your personal, go on, you, Karl. I've spoken.
No,
Go
I was actually just thinking that the mindset jump between being a practitioner and being an educator is quite a major leap, and then taking that from being a face-to-face educator to an online experience. I mean, how have you made that change? Because I think there's a lot of people who are practitioners who probably would like to be involved in some way in education, but actually have never thought, well, I don't know how to do it. How did you make that change in yourself?
Yeah, so I was sitting in an office and every day 9 to 5, and I just wondered one day, is there anything more to life than this? And I had a lot of time to think about that, and I wasn't quite sure what to do to make a change. And what I had a hypothesis on was, if I could develop my speaking skills, that could open up more opportunity. And that was 100% true. And so what I started doing was leading free lunch and learn sessions over lunch. No one told me to do it, didn't get paid for it, but just started leading some impromptu sessions. What was really cool about that is that some other project managers would join me in a conference room over lunch. We'd all just have food and be a little bit casual. I could even start by speaking while sitting down. And if I wanted to, I could stand up and address the room. And so it was like a really nice way to ease into speaking in front of people. At first, I used to get really nervous speaking. And so I joined Toastmasters, which is a professional speaking organization, Extreme Toastmasters in Chicago, shout out to them, and just learned, the more that you do it, the easier it gets. And so then I started looking for stages to speak on, and got invited to speak for the Project Management Institute, the different chapters, different Agile groups, and different conferences. And so I started by just saying yes to every opportunity. And I also noticed that if you just talk about what your goals are, and this is going to tie in a little bit to personal agility here, if you have clarity on what you want to do, and if you start to talk about those goals, even just talking about what you want, people are going to hear it. So whether you believe in a higher power, the universe, abundance mindset, fill in the blank, right? No matter what, even if you're making that intention, but even if you're just talking about your intention, people will hear it, and then they'll think of you for that. So I was like, oh, I want to be a speaker. I want to be a professional speaker. People would hear that. And then who would they think of to speak? Maria. And so I started just finding any stage I could speak on, doing it for free, then travel expenses covered, up until delivering keynotes around the world. So it just started a little bit organically. And it really came from an intrinsic desire to do something more than just what I was doing. I was like, can I make a greater impact in this world beyond the four walls of this company? And that's when I decided I wanted to go much broader. And then I ended up getting into doing more training, and then launched my own company with Formula Inc. and started doing that more full time.
Cool. So how did you find out about personal agility? Because it's not something that is all over the place, is it? It's something that's, you have to discover it, don't you?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I feel like people ask me, Maria, how have you done all the things you've done? How do you run a global consulting company? How do you, speak at all these events? How do you do that? The secret, which might not be too surprising for you, I literally have been applying Agile to everything that I do, since the beginning. Now, the challenge here, and here we're talking about Agile applied to your life, then we're going to talk about personal agility and what the difference is and how that can be more helpful. So I used to apply Agile to my life. So even going through Toastmasters, I got through to become a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest designation in the organization. There's a communication track and a leadership track. There were people in my club in Chicago that had been in the club for years and had not even finished their 10 speeches. It's like, well, what are you doing? Don't you want to become a better speaker? But it's almost like live theater, I guess, right? They would go and go for the camaraderie of it and be able to participate, but still be kind of lurk in the background. And so what I did is I made a task board, a visual task board. And so then I started saying, okay, what's my next speech? And then what do I need to do for the leadership track? And then move it from to do in progress to done. And so I could visualize, I want to achieve this, and let me make it visible and apply some Agile techniques. Now, I wasn't making the progress I wanted, so I joined a second Toastmasters club and then a third one because my client at the time was open to starting a club internally. So now I'm going to 2 to 3 meetings a week. And then because it's visual and focused on it, I got through all of the content and the criteria for that. So I've applied the same thing when I look at, okay, what is my next goal? What is it that I want to achieve? Now, the challenge here is that when you apply Agile to your life, just out the box, the things that you know as an Agilist, which for those that may be newer to Agile, it's really just, it's what it sounds like, being able to be flexible, adaptable, get something to market faster, use a smaller increment. If you're trying to do this huge thing, well, can we break it down into a smaller piece and just get one piece of it done and then build upon it and then constantly iterate and improve as we go. And so just applying that to any personal goal, it can work, right? It's Agile, it's very effective. We know this. Though I ran into one of the most challenging things that almost all teams run into when they first try Agile, and that's how to maintain a sustainable pace. And so a lot of times teams struggle with this, right? There's more work put on their plate. So I sold my place in Chicago or got rid of it, started traveling, really just actually did something radical, started traveling on one-way tickets, had no home to go back to. I had burned the boat, like the bridge or the boat behind me, and had to go forward. And so what I realized is that I felt like I was limited by coming back to a home every time I finished a trip. And when I was in Chicago, I was only there maybe half of a month, if that, because I was already traveling and speaking and had that momentum. And so I was like, you know what? My contract came to a close, could have taken another one. It's like, no, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna put all the chips in. And so as I did that, I started noticing that around the world, like a lot of companies struggle with the same challenges, right? They're not as unique as they might think. Everyone has the same unique challenges. Maybe that's the kinder way to say it. And so I started seeing these things. And so I'm like, okay, I wanna be a professional speaker, nailed it. Want to launch a consulting company internationally, nailed it. Working with the biggest companies in the world, the Fortune 100, IBM, Microsoft, Bank of America, Disney, and like really just helping them increase their efficiencies and get results. But I burnt out and I didn't have a sustainable pace. And so I realized like that's just such a common pitfall for people when they're applying Agile. And for me, 5 years ago, it was actually so bad I ended up in the hospital. And I was told that I had 3 tumors that were growing in my stomach, and one was about the size of a football. And it was so bad, and I was so sick from this and got so anemic that I was in a wheelchair for almost a year. Now, I'm a little slow, and so I didn't quit. I didn't take time off the road too much. I did for maybe a month or 2, but the problem was I wasn't even healthy enough to have the surgery to have them removed. So I tried alternative medication. Caused me to gain 50 pounds in less than a year. That was traumatizing for other reasons. And I couldn't stand because I would fall to the floor with these migraines. I just didn't have enough energy in my body to even function. Now, having built a consulting company that I didn't want to fall apart, I still tried to keep it going. And we had so much requests for training that was all in person at the time. So what did I do? Started traveling through airports in wheelchairs. You do get a nice perk getting wheeled right up to the front of the plane. You don't have to wait in the line. It's very convenient. But it was really challenging. And so what I started doing is flying other trainers into the city I was in, and I would have them help me. So I would just sit in a chair at the front of the room, point to things, say some words, and I'd have a co-facilitator. So I'm flying other trainers into Nova Scotia, into Salt Lake City, going to Texas. And that's the way I was able to do it. And I realized that I couldn't really recover when I was still trying to keep everything together. But I was really afraid that if any of my clients found out I was sick, that they would not hire us. They would think, oh, well, she's not reliable. I didn't want that. So really nobody knew. So I was going through this horrible, challenging event in life that nobody knew the struggle. And when you think about it, a lot of people that we interact with every single day, have all these challenges that they never talk about, because we're all putting our highlight reels on social media and we only want to be seen in the best light. And so everyone's walking around with all these challenges. No one's talking about it. And it's like, well, that doesn't sound super functional, but for the same reasons, I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be seen as weak. I didn't want people to not trust what we were able to deliver. And so I did that for 5 years, was able to, after a year, got healthy enough to have the surgery. I got knocked out. That was really intense for the recovery. But a couple months later, slowly started to travel again. And what I realized was that of all the things I had been doing, yes, I had all these amazing achievements in my life. Yes, I could apply Agile and get results, but there was something there that I was missing. And it was that sustainable pace. It was being able to actually maintain that. You look at software products, they want to have quality. What about
so is that pace, or is that pace and prioritization? Because if you get the right sizing, it's fine, but actually, are you doing the right piece?
Possibly. And I think it goes a little deeper. Also to the concept of not just limiting work in progress, but limiting initiatives in progress. But for me, I think it actually might have been prioritization, because, so fast forward a little bit, I was speaking at an event in Singapore, then speaking at the Experience Agile event in Lisbon, Portugal. And then there was a Scrum gathering in Munich, Germany, just a couple weeks later. And so I'm like, well, I'm already over here in Europe. That's on the way home. So my team and I was traveling with another trainer and a videographer, because that seemed necessary, and I wanted to document my travels. And so we swung by Munich, Germany for the Scrum gathering. And what's interesting is that that's where a couple of things really changed. So there's two significant things that happened there. One, it was my first time DJing internationally. And let me tell you that story very briefly. I was speaking at a conference in Philly. Alistair Coburn, one of the authors of the Agile Manifesto, he was hosting one of their first Heart of Agile conferences. And he had me speaking about Agile marketing. And Nick Cementa, my business partner in the Agile Marketing Academy, was there. And what happened was the organizers forgot to coordinate music entertainment for the networking party that evening. And Alistair, if you know him, he's just such a vibrant soul. And he's like, we must have music. We must have dancing. We must have the fun part at my conference. We must have the fun part. That's where all the magic happens. That's where people really connect. And so he's like, hey, Nick, can you and Maria play music or DJ or something? And Nick used to run a creative incubator in Chicago. And so he said, hey, if you own a venue, you're eventually going to have to learn how to DJ, because at some point the DJ is not going to show up. So he's like, Maria, you want to DJ? I'm like, yes, maybe. I don't know. Okay. So my first time DJing was live on stage with a couple hundred people in the audience at the Heart of Agile conference. Super nervous, but Nick was there to help, right? And then I discovered I kind of liked it. So Nick found us a standing gig in the warehouse district of St. Pete, Florida, and we started DJing open mic nights. So then I go to travel to Singapore, speak at the conference, go to Portugal for Experience Agile. And then in Munich, I saw the conference coordinators for the Scrum gathering in Singapore, because this is a global network and it's actually a fairly small community, right, in the Agile world. And so I was like, oh, you guys are going to get a kick out of this. Because being the marketer that I am, I of course made a dope DJ flyer. So I was like, hey, check it out. Nick and I just DJ'd at the Heart of Agile conference. And they're like, do you want to DJ in Munich? I was like, yes. And so I get there and they tell me, no, we've been playing this conference for a year. You can't DJ. I'm like, okay. But I was like, I'm still going to do it. I'm going to find someone here has a suite. I'm going to DJ after hours, but I had no equipment. So I went out into the streets of Munich and bought all new DJ gear, sent out my assistant trainer, Paul, to go print a flyer. He's like, where do I go? I was like, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So he comes back with the flyer. I walk into the networking party that night that was sponsored by IBM, and there was no music. And the PR girl runs up to me. She's like, Maria, there's no music. I'm like, so? She's like, you could DJ. So they said, as long as we're not paying the AV team anymore, but if you can figure out how to connect this to the sound, you can do it. So my first time DJing internationally was at a 750 person conference sponsored by IBM in Germany. And I could not figure out how to hook up the sound properly. So I got on the mic. I was like, does anyone here know how to hook up sound? We had to rig it through a wireless mic in order to get to the speakers of the room. No. It was so ridiculous, but it happened. And so I was like, well, that was really cool, right? And so this is something that I discovered after I got out of the hospital. It's like, that's when Alistair's conference was. And I was like, wow, this is something that gives me life more than just work. Now to back up just a little bit more, one of my previous books that I wrote, it's called Workaholic. as a 12-step guide to have a life and get things done. And it's become an international bestseller on Amazon. So apparently there's a lot of workaholics out there. And that was really my life. I always wanted to be successful. And if I look at where that came from and working so hard all the time, it's because growing up, my family was just a very humble, modest family, and we struggled for money, actually. I'd say we were actually below middle class. Like, we really struggled so much just to get by. And I just decided at a young age, I never want to have those challenges in my life. And my parents got divorced, my whole family fell apart. And I was like, if we didn't struggle for money, maybe things would have been easier. And so I always felt like I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be determined. So that's why I worked so hard. Started working when I was 15, worked 3 jobs to pay my way through college. And I was just determined that I would be successful. Now, what did I do? I burnt myself out, right? Even knowing Agile, the tagline for Scrum is getting done twice the work in half the time. I'm an expert in this. I know how to do this. I teach this, though the sustainable pace is a real challenge. So the second thing that happened that was extremely impactful in Germany was I was sitting in the lobby of the Westin Grand in Munich, and it was where the Scrum gathering was held. And I ran into Peter Stevens. He's another Scrum trainer. And I'd seen him at the conference in Portugal. He was there as well. And he saw me talking about Agile marketing. He said, Maria, I want to get your thoughts on this thing called personal agility I've been experimenting with. I was like, okay, Peter, tell me more. And he's like, yeah, so you apply Agile to your life. I'm like, yeah, Peter, of course it works. We all know that Agile works. And of course it'll work in your life. And I didn't really listen. Now, the second time when I saw him in Munich, I actually listened. Because he said, Maria, can I just get a couple minutes of your time? I just want to get your thoughts on this again. And so as we're talking, he was like, what this question at the core of personal agility is what really matters. And he asked me, Maria, what really matters in your life? And it was like that moment in the movie where like ground zero hits, right? And you have this instant realization. And I realized in that moment that nothing that I thought mattered at all. And the reason is, I was like, started to list, well, what does really matter? Well, having freedom and flexibility, getting out of that 9-to-5 job. Boy, did I do that. I was traveling with no home like a gypsy. Like, yes, check. Can we check that off now? Like, do I have to keep doing that? Having meaningful relationships with people in my life, because traveling gets lonely. So I realized how important it is to actually connect with people. And then building a quality brand. And that was so important to me. It's like business. That's all I did. And what I realized in that moment that we were having that conversation, that I completely missed something that was more important than everything else. And that was my health. It wasn't even on my radar. And I, was just recovering from being sick and in the hospital, and the horrific year the year before, not even being able to walk, being in a wheelchair, and nobody even knowing about it. So not even getting empathy, not even getting sympathy from other people. I just like suffering in silence, wondering, how do I keep my life and business from falling apart after I worked so hard to build this? And so I actually listened to Peter that second time, and I was like, whoa, okay, all right, I need to make some changes in what really matters. And that's back to the prioritization, right? And so when you look at it, the things that mattered at one point in my life, maybe I don't need to have those as the things I'm still striving for. What's the next level? I instantly put health at the top. I put DJing second, because that's the only thing that I loved that would pull me away from work. That's the only way to get Maria away from not doing work all the time, was to play music. I just discovered that I loved it. And then it's like, okay, now we can have sustainable business. Notice that the phrasing was, it's going to be sustainable, not rotating around Maria doing everything and Maria getting on a plane every day. I was averaging 2 to 3 cities a week. In 2017, I passed through 80 cities and 15 countries alone. And so it was just not sustainable in any way of the thinking. And so what I realized was that personal agility is so much more powerful than I even thought. So when you think about just applying Agile to your life, yes, you can get results. But when you apply personal agility, we've actually built into the framework checks and balances to help you have that sustainability. And that's one of the biggest differences. We look at what really matters, and we limit the things that matter that are in progress. So you can actually focus on really doing meaningful things. Then we look at what are the possibilities? What are things you could do? We're not even committing them to them yet. And then what's urgent? What must get done this week, or maybe something bad will happen. And then of those things, triage between the possibilities and the urgent things. And then here's my plan for the week. And then we create the breadcrumb trail, where you can look back and say, okay, of the last several weeks, if I continue doing these same things, it's probably an indicator of where I'm going. I'll probably get more of those results. If I want something different, I need to do something slightly different. Enter the forces map. What's the bigger picture of the things that really matter and your North Star that you're really striving toward? And then we have a couple of other things like the alignment compass, where you can see where you're at, a couple other tools like the stakeholder canvas to help interview, create alignment with people around you. And what I realized is that this is really one of the most effective ways you can achieve any goal, whether that's in your personal life, taking a holistic view of
do
everything
you
going
need
on.
to be a driven person to do personal agility? I mean, you're a fairly forthright, focused, driven person. Do you have to be like that to you do personal agility, or is it something that anyone can do? I mean, you've come across as someone who's very aware, made some really good decisions along with some pretty bad ones, like most humans. Well done. You remain in the human race, but then you've adopted this personal agility. Is it for an elite, or can anyone use it?
I appreciate that question. Thank you for that. It's for anyone. It's a simple framework. And just to share how simple it can be, I actually got into an Uber about 3 years ago. I'd flown in from Chicago to Tampa, Florida, and there's about a 20-minute drive from Tampa over the bridge to St. Petersburg. And I got in an Uber, it was a random trip. I was up in Toronto, then in Chicago, then visiting family in Central Illinois, back to Chicago. And so I got back, and the lady driving the Uber, she said, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" She wanted real chatty gal. And she was like, "Hey, how are you doing? Like, are you traveling for business or pleasure?" I was like, "Oh, I mean business. Well, and a little pleasure, a little bit of both." She's like, "Well, what do you do? What were you doing on your trip?" I was like, "Oh, I was leading training classes, and I do consulting for companies." And I paused, and I was like, "Oh, and I was DJing." And she's like, "Who are you?" I was like, "Maria Matatelli, nice to meet you." And so I was talking with her on this ride, and she's like, "I want to connect with you. Can you follow me on Instagram so that I can connect with you when I'm not driving?" I was like, "Sure." I started looking at her Instagram. There's all this amazing food, like delicious looking food. And the marketer in me couldn't help it. I was like, "May I offer you some feedback?" She said, "Sure." I said, "Well, your food looks amazing, but I don't know what it is. There's no description. And your personality is incredible, but I don't see any of that coming through on this page. Why don't you do more video?" And she said, "Well, I would like to actually have my own cooking show on TV, but I just don't really know where to start." I was like, "Well, why don't you shoot a YouTube cooking show and then create a portfolio and then submit it to TV stations?" She's like, "Honey, I'm old. I don't know how to use YouTube." I was like, "All right." So we continued talking, and I kept telling myself, don't offer to help, don't offer to help, don't offer to help. I got so much on my plate right now. I was like, "I tell you what, come over to my place on Friday. It's 3 days later, and I'll help you shoot your YouTube cooking show. I just want to eat the food for free because this food looks delicious." And so she came over to my place. We shot the YouTube cooking show. I just put my iPhone on a tripod, edited it on iMovie, and put it up on YouTube. And so you can find it. It's Healthy Cooking with the Culinary Queen. Her name is Sharon Guerin. When I met Sharon, she was working 5 jobs and barely getting by. One of those jobs was Uber. She was negative in her bank account regularly. She had over $735 of insufficient funds fees that year alone in 2018. She had these dreams, but didn't know where to start. She was literally going negative in her bank account so much that she had her car repossessed. She could barely cover her bills. And so if you want to say, do you have to be a high performer or someone that's already at a certain level of success to do personal agility? The answer is a hard no. Anybody, even, and Sharon, I think she was coming from below the normal average of like where most people are living. Like she was really struggling to get by. And she had several kids she was trying to support as a single mom. And so she really had all these chips stacked against her. And so as we were working on creating the YouTube cooking show, I was getting this delicious food to eat. And she's like, "Well, I also want to lose weight and have this amazing transformation in a fitness journey." When I met Sharon, she was over 300 pounds. So to hear that, "Oh, I want to look like this, I want to be 150. That doesn't seem like a super simple thing to do, right? And so we started, I was like, "Hey, let's just go work out. We got a gym here in my place at the rooftop. Like, let's go work out there." So we started hanging out, working out. And then the YouTube cooking show started taking off. People started hiring her to do catering and private chef services. And she blew up over the holiday season that year. Well, fast forward and January hits, and I kept saying, "Hey, Sharon, you might want to work on the business, not just in the business. Hey, Sharon," I give her these little tips. And like January comes, she's like, "Maria, we have 0 clients now. Everyone only wanted us for the holidays." I'm like, "Yeah, that thing I told you about working on the business, that was what I was referring to." And she's like, she'd always pick my brain on business. And I was like, "Sharon, I can give you like 5-minute snippets here and there, but you know, this is what I do for work, right? Like if you actually bring me on to work with you, I can really help you." So she brought me in as her business partner, and I started helping her with the marketing. So when Sharon was trying to start, she landed an opportunity to cater an event, a cancer benefit in a $1.6 million home. But she couldn't even afford to buy the food to do the event, even though she's going to be reimbursed for it. So it's like she just couldn't get a break. So I was like, I tell you what, let me cover the food. I'll cover it in advance. When they reimburse you, pay me back. And I started just giving her little micro loans just to get started. Started giving her a little bit of coaching. And I taught her personal agility. Now, here's the thing. I believe that Sharon would have had some success if I just taught her Agile for business. However, a lot of the challenges that she had were not just related to business. It was a lot in her personal life. And so she had years of really challenging life. And she's just such a survivor. And she survived physical abuse, sexual abuse, like all the chips stacked against her, had been left on the side of the road by someone that she had been with, and then just like literally beaten her up and left her on the side of the road. Like the most challenging situation, the saddest situation you could ever hear. And so for her to really move forward and step into her greatness and her amazing talent with being able to provide food, like she needed to actually let go of who she was, what was holding her back in the past, doing everything for everyone else, having 3 children in their 30s that she would still give rides to work because they didn't have a car. And I'm like, Sharon, don't you drive Uber? Don't people pay you to drive Uber? Like, why are you doing that for free when that's actually one of your ways of making money? Like, you have to put yourself first. One of her sons got in trouble, ended up in trouble, and she ended up hiring an attorney, took all the money she had saved up for her business to help bail him out. And it's like, Sharon, the more you put everyone in front of you, like, you're never going to have what you need. And her friends, people, oh, you can't do that, or oh, what makes you think you can be a professional caterer, you know, a private chef? And so that
all goes to that favorite saying: if everyone around you is drowning and you give your life preserver away, you'll drown.
Yes,
but if
absolutely.
you try and swim to and make a raft for other people, then you can help them. But actually, if you give up your lifeline, then you're no better off, and everyone else is probably going to drown anyway.
Like she needed someone to believe in her as well, which is what you were also doing at the same time, is someone to also believe in her and give her the support that she's obviously given out to everyone else and not giving back to herself.
Absolutely. Well, and so what Sharon did, I said, Sharon, what really matters? What are the top 3 to 4 things that matter in your life? And she wrote them on Post-it notes and put them on the dashboard of her car because she drove so much. And she's like, I look at that every day. I started showing her personal agility, a little bit of a Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off type of approach. And so she started making some changes. She started having realizations, and it's all in her priorities map. You can see it in her breadcrumb trail where she started to have these realizations and started making adjustments. She's like, Maria, I really want to have this amazing transformative weight loss. Great, Sharon. Here's a personal trainer you can work with. I don't really want to work with it. Sharon, hey, you could maybe do this. I don't know, like so much resistance, right? Because it was just such a big change she was looking for. Fast forward, 2018, in December, she was negative in her bank account. 2019, she brought in over 20 grand. 2018, $735 of insufficient funds fees. 2019, brought in over 6 figures. Fast forward one more year, 2020, pandemic breaks out. She lands a 6-figure client as a private chef client. And so Sharon's life is completely different. Where is she now? She's lost over 55 pounds. Sharon is crushing it in life. Sharon has luxury problems now. Sharon is like, but I'm supposed to like do this or that. And it's like, Sharon, oh, congratulations. That's a luxury problem. Like, that's a good problem to have. It's a much better problem than having your car repoed, not being able to pay your rent, having your electricity shut off, right? And so I feel like Sharon really came from not even on the same starting line as everyone else. She was like back like a mile. And she had to like run a mile and then like pass other people to get to where she wants for her dreams. And so since then, she's done incredible things. She's worked with Forbes Riley, TV personality. Forbes has sold over $2.6 billion in sales. And Sharon has done private chef services for her. She's been working with her on, she's in a cookbook, co-authored with Forbes and some other talented chefs. And she's just absolutely crushing it. She was in a favorite chef contest in America and made it to the quarterfinals. And like her entire life has changed because she applied personal agility. She asked herself what really matters. She visualized it in her priorities map. We had a call every week and we're syncing and we're connecting, saying, okay, how did this last week go? Is that how you want the next week to go? So it's having the visibility, having the accountability, having that clarity, and then taking small steps, no matter how small, forward. And so the real power in personal agility is it helps you to be able to see and be able to have that moment to have every week, that celebrate and choose event. Let me celebrate what I achieved and let me choose what I want to do next. Because if what I've been doing will get me there, let me keep doing it. But if I'm not on the right track, let me make a change.
That leads into a question I was actually going to say. So for our viewers and our listeners and everything, what would your top 5 steps would be for anybody that wants to get into personal agility? Because you've said so many amazing things, but what would, if someone came up to you and said, what are the top 5 things I need to do? Or what do I need to look into? What would your advice be?
Yeah, thank you for that question. The first thing is that question that Peter asked me that froze me in my tracks. It's what really matters. So I would ask yourself that question, what really matters? And think about it. Now, if you're not sure, you can actually look at what have you been doing. Start to create the breadcrumb trail. Start to make a list of the things you did last week or the week before that. Now, there's clues to this. You can look at your calendar, your text messages, your phone calls. You can look at where did I go? Who did I talk to? And you can just say, okay, these are apparently the things that mattered. By default, this is what really mattered to me because that's what I actually did. Now, a lot of times we say, well, here's what I want to do, or I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to, get a raise in my salary. I want to advance my career. Yet we say it, but we don't actually do things in our behavior that aligns with that. We aren't taking the steps. So first thing is identify what really matters. If you're having trouble with that, look at what you have been doing and ask yourself, are those the things that you want to matter? And then I would create a priorities map. And so creating the priorities map is where you actually start to visualize this stuff. You start to look at, okay, of the things that I say that matter, what are the things I could do? And we color code them. So at a glance, you can see how much time am I spending on my health? How much time is I spending with, enhancing the relationships of the people in my life that I care about, my family? How much time am I spending with business? Once you figure out what those things are, those are some common ones. And so having that visualization, being able to see it is going to help you, because then each week, we're going to reflect. So identify what really matters, create your priorities map, visualize what are we playing with? What are we working with here? And then I would have that celebrate and choose event once a week where you would stop, carve out time, block it off on your calendar where it's you and it's your priorities map. And you're sitting there and you're reflecting. Of the things I did last week, is there anything that I wish I had done different? Is there anything I didn't get done? Is there anything that I could do that could better align with the things that matter? Having that visibility is groundbreaking, absolutely incredible. So then as you're doing that, what you might want to do is actually even ask a friend for help. So number 4, ask a friend for help. Get someone's perspective outside of yourself, because it's so clear when we look at other people what they need to do, right? You see that friend that's going through a challenging relationship and you're like, why don't you just walk away from that? That does not sound healthy. And you're like, well, but I can't. And you're like, it's so obvious to you that there's something dysfunctional and maybe they shouldn't be in that situation, or they could change it if they simply choose. If you don't like all these things about your life, why not do something different? Try something different. So having that accountability, I think, can really, really be helpful. And so as you're able to talk to other people, they can provide insights that you might miss. And so asking for help can just help you get back on track. And so as for a fifth thing, what I would say is, even go back and, wherever you put this, make it visible. If you can put it somewhere visible, I know someone, he put it on his fridge. Every time he goes to get food, he's seeing his priorities map. Sharon put what really matters on her dashboard of her car, Post-it notes, boom, boom, boom. So make it visible so that you see it all the time. And so I used to, when I was living in Chicago, trying to get out of my 9-to-5 consulting, I remember I put up a bunch of Post-it notes on the wall because I just wanted it right there. Boom, I'm going to see what my goals are. And one of my friends, she's like, Maria, it's kind of nerdy and embarrassing. Can you you should take those down. And so I was like, yeah, but I see my goals every day. So now what I figured out is you can get that foam board from just Walgreens or Walmart or any store. And you can put your Post-it notes on that, have that physical board, put it in the closet, put it behind the couch, put it anywhere.
Gosh,
you can actually
I'm looking geeky.
I know,
like
right?
Post-it notes everywhere. It's not geeky. You can make it stylish.
Potentially, but there were a lot of Post-it notes, and so it kind of was geeky. The stuff on it was geeky. It was but basically, have it visible. Have it visible where you can see it, and it's going to remind you every single day. And so, if Sharon can do it, anyone can do it. Sharon was coming from behind the starting line. Then fast forward, other people I've worked with, I personally coached some entrepreneurs, other people here in the Tampa Bay area and others around the world. And one of the guys, he was making about 60 grand a year. And he had his own business and he just couldn't quite break out of that. So I was like, I think you need to be able to see and visualize the path for how you can get there, how you can create more revenue. And what are things we could try? Who are the people you're around? What is your context? What have you tried before? What are you doing for marketing? So we really just broke down what really matters And then what are the things that you're doing toward that? And we were able to, after 1 year, doubled his revenue. So now he's pulling in 120,000. For this year, he's currently on track to bring in $250,000, bringing in 20 to 25,000 every month. So if he can apply the personal agility system, double his revenue 2 years in a row, there's something there. Another company here, I've been working with a medical med tech company here in the Tampa Bay area. They're a patient engagement platform that's HIPAA compliant. And so we were able to achieve a 3-year roadmap in 1 year's timeline, and they hit a $35 million valuation. Now I trained them up on Agile, trained them up on Scrum, but I also did a workshop for their leadership team, their executive team on personal agility. And that's where a lot of things really started to shift for them, because the CEO was able to connect with his leadership team even more. They were able to create better alignment, and it built so much more trust, even though they'd known each other for years and some of them decades. It's like, wow, I actually really got to connect with people in a deeper way that I hadn't before. And it allowed him to trust them more, step back, delegate more, try some different strategies. And it was also for his paradigm to shift, where when we started, it's, you know, that workaholic type of thing that I am so familiar with. He was saying, well, 95% of what I do is going to be focused on work because that's what's most important, 5% for everything else. He's like, really, that's what really matters. Only work, nothing about balance, nothing about these other things. And then he started slowly over time seeing, well, wait a minute, if I can be more balanced as a person, if I can feel better, feel healthier, I can actually get more done. Wait a minute, if I can be more strategic, I don't have to work so hard all the time, crunching numbers or being on the computer all day and all night, pulling all-nighters regularly. And so he started to get more sustainability in how his day went, connecting better with the leadership team. And that's how they're able to get these results. And the stories and case studies keep rolling in. And on personalagilityinstitute.org, we've got all of our case studies listed there. And it's incredible to see what people are able to achieve when they know what really matters and follow a simple framework like the personal agility system.
So get the $1 million question, or the $10 question is, how much does it cost?
It's actually aligned with most industry certifications, around $1,000. But I mean, really, how much is it to change your entire life? And I mean, isn't that priceless, right?
Well, it is. And then most people change their life over their entire lifetime. So at least once or twice. I think I've probably had every job title there is in technology. So
this has been a mind-blowing interview. Thank you so much, Maria, for taking your time. It has been mind-blowing. It's been inspirational. It has been wild. I mean, even to the extent you even got me and Karl saying we are not worthy. It's a rarity when we do that. I mean, this has been
I've got my
amazing.
Post-it notes by the side. I was taking notes. I wasn't not engaged. I was taking notes. So I'm gonna have a go and see what comes of it. To challenge myself, because I think there's no point at which we should think that we've arrived. So if you can't learn, you've given up.
Oh, I love that. Love that. And I think that's so true. And, it's been exciting to see how these concepts, I mean, we know Agile works, right? We've seen it work with businesses, and it's incredible to see how personal agility works with people, because think about it. There's not all the red tape that companies have. You don't have to get approval or work with the team. It's you and the people that you choose to have in your life and create alignment with. And so it's exciting to see how, when you can just have that decision to make that change, anything's possible.
It's been amazing. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much.
We hope, because we are not worthy, we could get you back on here again, get you more involved in Agile world. Thank you ever so much. You are going to be an inspiration to so many people, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Sabrina. And I just wanted to share if anyone wanted to connect with me, you can find me at findmaria.com and get a link through to my social media. And with personalagilityinstitute.org, if you want more information, we do have over 28 ambassadors across 10 countries that are there helping, coaching, training, helping people to change their lives. So thank you.
We'll make sure all the information is a link on the video, 100%. Thank you.
Perfect.